seconds left and then lost like a minute into overtime. They've done much better than I think expectations were this year, but they really are going to look back on this series and look at it as something that they could have won. But it was fun, though. Mila went to her first game. Avery and I have been going to Preds playoff games since we moved here. Mila went to her first game, and she was into it from the get-go. It was a lot of fun. She was waving her towel before anybody else was. It was kind of like, how did she know to do that type of a thing? But, the lights and the music kept her mesmerized, so it was pretty cool.
That helps. Yeah. So if you want to send Dan virtual hugs today, he's feeling sad inside about his Predators.
I've actually got a funny story. It was so we were like in the lower bowl, second row from the top, center ice. And there was one row of people behind us. And about 5 minutes into the game, I hear this old lady yell, "Milo, shut the hell up." And Milo is my father's name. So as soon as I heard that, my entire childhood flashed through my head because I don't know how many times I've heard my mother say that throughout my lifetime. So it was pretty funny, but good times.
That is funny. That's good. I like that. Yeah. Sweet. Well, it sounded like you had a good weekend, man, and all good here.
So, did you have a good one?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, no complaints. It was busy. My nephew's 5th birthday party, and so we were over there. And if you like, we don't talk about it on the show at all, but I'm building. We bought a new house in the fall, so our other garden couldn't come with us. So I'm in the process of building my wife her dream garden, if you want to call it that. So I've been working outside a lot. Getting that ready. So the Farmer's Almanac had said not to plant anything outside until April 17th. And then, of course, last week we had 2 freeze warnings. So good old Ohio. But yeah. So we are launching into our show. I wanted to, Dan, I talked to you about this off air. So I want, and we do shows as fans, for fans. And I appreciate everybody that watches. And sports is something that I honestly believe brings us together. And Dan and I may have takes or opinions that differ from yours, and that's fine. But let's, if you're commenting, we're a family show. So let's try to be respectful of one another. And I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going to talk about where it was or how it was or anything, but we're going to have different takes. Dan and I have different takes. We don't agree on everything, and that's for sure. And if you go back to when we first started doing the pod, I was more on the Will Howard train than I was the Devin Brown train, until I watched spring football. So we are going to have different takes, different thoughts, and I appreciate everybody's opinions. But I want sports to bring us together. I don't want it to pull us apart. So especially our love for the Buckeyes. So I'll leave it at that, and we'll get into our show. And so Dan, 2025, how in the world we're talking about that? Because class of 2024 feels like it just wrapped up. Because we got a late get there in February, but who's your must get? Mine really was Tarvis Alford from the defensive side of the ball, and it's Tavian St. Clair on the offensive side of the ball. But of the guys that we're targeting and that are left, who has piqued your interest? I remembered one guy that it was way up there for me.
Yeah, I think it probably is one of two at this point, and this isn't necessarily one of them's not a need in this class because we're so loaded in the secondary. But it's not my main one. But 1B is I really don't want to lose Trey McNutt to Oregon. And
absolutely.
I have a feeling we're going to. I really would not be surprised at all if he chooses Ohio. Somebody other than Ohio State for non-football related reasons. But the guy that I want to get and that is a must get for me is Justin Hill at this point. And this comes on the heel of that, that viral clip from when he just absolutely destroyed that Notre Dame kid, which by the way was, a 6'8", 300-pound highly coveted offensive line recruit, Notre Dame commit, that I've never. I mean, I was worried the police were going to show up and put him in handcuffs after what he did to that kid.
Okay.
But here's why. Here's why he's become our must get. He verbalized out loud that he is watching how the jack position is used because that's what they're recruiting him to play. And we all know and assume and have heard the rumblings about the push-pull between LJ and Knowles when it comes to that jack position. So if we don't get him, it's going to be because we're not using that position. And I think we are good enough now, and our foundation is strong enough now that we need to incorporate that position into our defense because it wreaks havoc. And when you've got an athlete like that on the field, you got to figure out a way to use them, man. Bama did it with Will Anderson. Clemson did it with Isaiah Simmons. We've yet to do it with CJ or Sonny. It needs to happen this year, and I want that kid. That kid is a freak.
Yeah, I like Justin Hill. That video showed you why everybody's in him. The power, like he straight picked that guy up. It when he jammed him, man, it was impressive. So Justin Hill's definitely up there. So I had two. So Trey McNutt's kind of like 1A for me, even though we have a really good secondary class already coming in. Dan Lanning, though, like whatever he's doing, the way he relates to kids and, the video of Trey in his car or whatever and listening to music and jamming out, like Dan Lanning's doing a good job relating to these kids. So hats off to Dan Lanning. But my other one, it's twofold. So one is Marion Dye, and the other one is Damian Shanklin, because I think we need to re-up at edge and specifically in the defensive line. And Damian Shanklin is what to the defensive line what Justin Hill is to the linebacker room. So I think Shanklin, I have not seen a whole lot of kids have a get off like him. I mean, there's been a few. There have been, but even including Edric Houston. Edric Houston is a great pass rusher, but Damian Shanklin, man, his speed is elite. And he reminded me of what I thought Kenyatta Jackson could be. He's lean and long and quick. And so he's definitely, those two are definitely on my list. And the other guy that I know we're kind of deep at this position, but realistically, we're going to be losing Emeka Egbuka next year, is Jamie French. I would like to add Jamie French to this class at wide receiver, because I think he could come in behind, the current 2024 class and actually push for playing time pretty quickly. So I'd like to add him. That's my wish list.
I think Jamie French and Trey Brown are virtual locks at this point.
That's fair.
I'd be shocked if we don't get both of those guys now. You know what the pitch is going to be on the trail, right? Like,
we're deep. You never see playing time.
Yeah. But we talked about this, I think last episode, or maybe 2 episodes ago now. But that wide receiver room is not as deep as people think it is.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see that. I just don't see that being a problem.
Yeah. Well, you have 2 of them are seniors, so Jane Ballard would be leaving, and Chris Olave would be leaving.
He's got like a COVID year left, doesn't he?
Maybe he does. He was class of 2020, wasn't he? Yeah.
He'll figure out a way to stick around if he can.
Yeah, class of 2020. So there's some room there for sure. Okay. All right. Well, I like your thinking. I like where you're at. I love Justin Hill. I think he's a great player. I think it'll be good for the Buckeyes. And I do hope they land him, and I'd like it a lot if we could use the jack position more this year. So and this is something.
Just to be clear, the sky's not falling regarding the O-line room, because neither one of us mentioned any O-linemen.
I don't think it's falling. They're bringing. They have a couple guys coming in again. To I guess I don't know, on official visits, some higher ranked guys. What is interesting is after the spring visit with David Sanders, like there was a lot of buzz about David Sanders and how he included Ohio State. And I think they need to get him back on campus again for another official. Because
in June.
Yeah, the sooner the
June 21st weekend is going to be insane.
The sooner the better for that, because that feeling. And I use this feeling of like the vacation feeling. You're on vacation, you're feeling good, everything's great, you're having the best time, you've unplugged, you don't have your laptop, you don't have any you're not talking to anybody from work, you're riding on water slides and doing all the things that you do. But that feeling after about a week of being back at work, or for some of you a day, it's gone. And so I much the same with recruiting. You've lost that love and feeling as soon as you get home and get back to your regular everyday life. And he is in the South, so the sooner they get him back on campus and warm him back up to the Buckeye State. And coming in June is a great time too, because like the weather's really nice and campus looks really nice, and that weekend is a big weekend with a lot of the kids that are coming in. So yeah, 100%, man.
I read something recently that he's kind of started to put his wants out there. And it was a 7-figure package. And a lot of folks thought that might cool Clemson on him rather than him cooling on Clemson. Like the thought process out there is that Clemson's not going to pay $1 million for an offensive lineman. And I don't know if it's necessarily good business for us to do so either. You know how I feel about that position group. And after, what we saw happen in the first round, Thursday night.
Yeah.
I just think it's a group that you develop. You don't need a bunch of 5-stars in order to be successful. With that being said, I have a feeling that our collective is going to open up the checkbook for him and do whatever they have to do to get him on campus. They're going to make him say no.
Yeah. So I can't remember where I heard this. It was a national show. So let me pivot to that. But their comparison, and this is not me. Please do not say that I put this out there. Their comparison for David Sanders, believe it or not, was Orlando Pace.
Well,
they said you could plug him in as a true freshman at probably right tackle, I would say. And he is as close to Orlando Pace, as some of the more recent guys have been. And I was like, that feels wrong, but he's that kind of talent.
I mean, Orlando Pace was a day one starter as a freshman.
I know. You and I know that.
Orlando Pace could have played in the NFL his freshman year.
I want to say it was J.D. Picknell, but please don't quote me. We both listen to so many shows and so many podcasts and Buckeye information. I
usually like JD, but he just put out a fluff piece on Dylan Raiola that was just so misleading.
That was so bad.
I mean,
it was so bad.
I had to comment on it on Instagram, and I'm just like, man, you really opted not to show any of the bad stuff, huh? I mean, it was like, okay.
Oh, shit.
But, yeah, it was funny. Now, would that be – listen, the kid's going to start as a freshman, and he's probably going to, benefit from it. I just don't – I think the kid is grossly overrated. And I saw enough. I saw a clip of all his bad stuff, and it was way longer than the good stuff from the other day.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's to be expected.
He's a freshman.
He's a freshman. Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly why Julian Sain should not be considered in the hunt to start for this team this year. It's just really, really hard.
Football's different than it was back in the day. But I wanted to also throw out a reminder for our folks, like and subscribe if you've made it this far with us. We always forget to tell you that. So we're only 15 minutes in, so I'm doing better than I normally do. But yeah, if you hit that like and subscribe button, it helps us with the YouTube and Twitter analytics and lets us know what you like and what you don't. So, and if you, I was gonna,
kids say, smash that button.
Yeah, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, punch the people. I don't know. Don't. It's Tuesday, folks. All right. So, one of the things that I got asked actually was, what are the football players doing now? Commencement's approaching for Ohio State. I know some friends that are, starting to pick their kids up from college and help them move home or whatever they're doing. So, Dan, I think the players that they're just getting ready to start summer workouts, and they're one of the things that people talk about often, and I hit on this too, is there's growth in spring ball. You have those 15 practices, and then before spring ball, you have the winter workouts in January and early part of February. But there are so many critical gains made from the end of spring ball until summer camp, because that is when you're working on your nutrition, you're hitting the weight room every day, you've got multiple hours to work. So what are they doing? What are they doing right now, Dan? What are they doing besides class?
I mean, right now they've got a 3-week break.
Yep.
So from the end of spring, the spring game to for 3 weeks they're on a break, and the kids that do mainly online classes, a lot of them have gone home to do that at home.
Yep.
If they've got stuff on campus, then obviously they're there. It's been interesting to see some of the stuff on social media that some of them are doing. Caleb's doing a bunch of camps, it looks like, down in Georgia, I think.
Mm-hmm. Give him back. Yep.
JJ's down working his butt off in Florida. Devin posted a picture. He likes to fly planes. So, but the one that's stirred up Buckeye Nation yesterday. I don't know if you saw this, but the pictures and the posts from Jelani Thurman on campus at UGA, and everyone freaking out. It's like everybody needs to pump their brakes. Like, first of all, it would be done a lot smarter than that. You're not gonna have a kid come hang out on campus and then hit the portal.
Yeah.
After hanging out on campus, right? He's probably incognito before he enters the portal, and then nothing. You don't have a chance to react. So yeah, they've got their 3-week break. They're finishing up classes. They're going home and visiting with family before they're back for the summer.
Yep. So this is a nice little breather. I remember, I always looked forward to that. I felt like, so Akron always went a little bit later. And I felt like by the Wednesday of finals week, usually most of my finals were over. I tried to arrange it that way. And then, so you had that week and then the following week for a breather. So you had like 10, 12 days to yourself, which is always nice. I always liked that time period in my life because there was like literally no responsibilities. You just you were working out and hanging out. So yeah, so that's what's up, guys. Thanks for the question. And so the next topic I wanted to touch on is how, so the 2024 or 2023 class graduating or off into the NFL draft, who of the players that got drafted landed in the best spot, do you think? And then was there anybody, and we shared on the show before the show started, so don't steal mine, that you were surprised didn't get picked up on day 2 or day 3 of the NFL draft? And then I also want to get your opinion on something else, but we'll talk about those two first.
All right. Well, why don't you go first, because I don't want to inadvertently steal yours.
Oh yeah. Well,
we talked about it 15 minutes ago, but I'm old. I forgot already.
So I thought the best landing spots, there were 2 guys. The first was Mike Hall, because the Browns defense is pretty deep anyway. So to give him an opportunity to learn and grow in that position, and then the way they use their defensive tackles as well. So the scheme, it'll be great. I think Michael Hall will have a long career in the NFL, especially as he could be a third down pass rush specialist at that defensive tackle position. The way he is able to get off the ball, and if he can defend the run a little better, he may end up developing into something else beyond that. And my other one was Tommy Eichenberg landing with the Raiders in the 6th round. I felt like, hey, like not a ton of pressure with a 6th round pick. it's a developing team. He much like Pete Werner when he landed with the Saints, like not a ton of pressure. Pretty good linebacker, great tackler. Does he have the speed for the NFL? So I thought those two were probably the two that landed in the best spot. And then people I was surprised that didn't get picked up. Josh Proctor, and I thought he would be a 6th or 7th round pick just because of how many teams need defensive back help in the NFL. And I thought he had a good fifth year under Jim Knowles. And then the other guy was Matthew Jones, because Matthew Jones has a lot of starts under his belt. He played a lot of football at Ohio State. So the only thing I could think of is, he really struggled at center in that game against Missouri. And so maybe he doesn't have the flexibility that the NFL teams were looking for. But those were the guys I thought of.
Yeah. we don't have a lot to choose from this year, right? That's been the big.
It's because everybody came back.
Everybody's back,
running it back.
Our arch rival, right?
Yeah.
The obvious is Marv, but I don't think a lot of people don't realize is that Marv's going to be, wide receiver 1 there from the get go.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Just because they don't. I think they got rid of Hollywood Brown, right? He left last year.
Well, I thought you were saying that because you like Arizona so much.
Yeah, no, I've followed them. I had season tickets when they moved to the Valley, and I lived out there. I think Kyler Murray is just a lazy player. But he's going to throw the ball. So I think Marv's got a chance to defend that Rookie of the Year title that we've had recently.
Yep.
I do like where Cade ended up. Obviously back in the saddle with CJ, but I think he can be tight end 2 there. I think they've really only got one guy that is a given to be tight end there. As far as, who didn't get drafted, I'm a little surprised that, and people are probably going to poo-poo this, I'm a little surprised that Steele didn't get drafted just because he's so smart. I thought he would have interviewed well enough with teams that somebody would have really liked his football IQ. Especially, at that position, to where you can have that green dot on your helmet and call the defenses and everything. I think he's that caliber of a guy, sports wise. So it was a little surprising. A lot of these guys that didn't get drafted though, they get to choose where they go now. Right. So it's actually better than being a 6th or 7th round pick. As far as timing goes, one thing that is a good fit for him there is that Antonio Pierce was a linebacker himself. And if I'm not mistaken, he may have gone undrafted. He's from my alma mater. He's from Arizona. But he had a nice little career despite being undrafted. I think he was undrafted. So, he's got that commonality there with his coach. So, but I think Steele's going to fit well in Detroit with Dan Campbell's mentality. I think that's a good spot for him.
Good. Awesome. Yeah, I like that take. Yep. So I think that on the flip side of the coin, I saw, Michigan fans having some fun with, they were going to have 20 players drafted and they were picking on the Buckeyes, and, they didn't account for the fact that Ohio State returned, 90% of the people that could, were going to leave or could leave. So, but what they say is nobody watches you harder than the people that don't like you. So, so they're watching what we're doing. And I posted a video the other day of Troy Smith, throwing to Ted Ginn in the 2006 game, and somebody put on there, well, you saw it, like, bless your heart, as all you have is memories or whatever. And I don't know how, yeah, I don't do that, man. But it just, it's one of those things, like, I don't know how all these people must have showed up in 2021 and not knew football existed before that, because you all lost 17 of 20 over the span of 20 years. And then you copped out and bitched out in the 2020 game. and then held practice the next day. So piss off. That's my take on that.
Well, if you actually look at a lot of their accounts, they literally were started in 2021.
Oh, I'm sure.
It's kind of funny.
Yeah, it is. So whatever, people can say what they want, but like I was at that game. It was an amazing game. And that's all I was talking about was how loud it was. I didn't even have anything to do with Michigan. I was just talking about how loud it was because somebody posted it, and I had mentioned like that one and the 2016 game, I think were probably the two loudest that I've ever been at. Now there's others. I know that I had friends at the Marcus Baugh comeback game with JT Barrett against Penn State, and they said that it was louder than the 2016 Ohio State Michigan game. I don't know. I wasn't at that one, but there's definitely been some loud ones in the history of football. So I found a picture or found a quick video actually of JJ McCarthy's first throws with Minnesota. So I thought you'd appreciate this. So I'm gonna see if I can do this right. Share. And here's JJ. Hey. Good job, Jay.
What movie is that from?
Oh, yeah. I can't throw anymore. So good job, JJ. Way to look at practice, man.
That's funny.
So yeah, he gets drafted as the sixth quarterback taken or whatever it was. So it's a wonder they somehow magically won a national championship with that throwing motion. There's my shot for the day. But in all sincerity, the Michigan didn't break the record, didn't come close to the record. And I'm asking you,
they broke the record.
Their record, not the record.
No. They broke the record. They broke the record for most guys invited to the combine that weren't drafted.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
They own that record.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, and so this for Michigan, to pay all that money last year to return all that talent to have an asterisk, something seems off. So that team somehow pulled off a national championship. And you would think that talent evaluators all over the NFL would be all over those guys trying to draft them, because if there was that much talent to win a natty, so what happened here? Why are we, why are these guys getting invited to the combine and then having terrible draft reports, but somehow magically winning a national championship?
I don't know what it could possibly be.
I don't know. It's almost like they knew things before they happened.
It's almost like they had an advantage that other people didn't.
Yeah, it's weird. It's so strange. Can't quite put my finger on that. All right.
Yeah, I mean, they bring in the group of 5 O-line transfers. I don't know, man. It's just it's weird. It's almost like they had ESP or something.
Yeah,
throughout the
I
course
bet.
of
I wonder if
the last few years.
It is. And then, I remember watching these videos of them like pointing at the sky. I thought maybe they were just like asking for help or something, but I don't know. Anyways. Yeah, crazy. All right, man. So our actual topic, all-time favorite Buckeye. And then we'll do all-time favorite Buckeye team. But so I had trouble with this so my wife, I'll tell you how this question came about. My birthday's coming up, and she's always looking for something unique for me. Because usually if I want it, I already have it. Or like I'll tell her what it is or something. So she's like, what Buckeye jersey? Because I have a lot of jerseys. I frame them on my wall. Do you like, who's your favorite all-time Ohio State Buckeye? And so a lot of them I have are like some of the ones that got in recent years or got at the stadium or, whatever. So I'm going to let you go first because I struggled with this.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many to choose from, right? But
Yep.
I think that it's kind of a two-part answer. I think my favorite player to watch was probably Troy Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Just because he kind of was at the forefront of that position changing
Yeah.
for Ohio State, you know. And he was only, 6 foot, and he won the Heisman.
Yep.
I mean, it sucks that we lost that game against Florida, but he was probably my funnest to watch along with Ted Ginn Jr.
Okay.
But Troy touched the ball every play, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think my most respected, and there's a little bit of recency bias here because you can go back and look at the likes of Chris Spielman and Sean Springs and those kind of guys, but I have a really, really hard time finding a better Buckeye than JT Barrett.
That's a good one.
I don't think he gets the respect that he deserves. I think he was an ultimate warrior. He was fiery. We haven't had that kind of fire at the QB position since him.
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, he was notorious for talking to the team and getting them going before and during the games. And I just thought, he should hold everybody's respect in Buckeye Nation for what he did and how he did it.
I think the most interesting thing about JT Barrett, and you probably remember this story of the lore, he was the first quarterback that Urban Meyer didn't personally see throw the football when they recruited him.
Oh, wow. Was it Tom Herman?
Yep. So interestingly enough, but so this one was hard. So I had an affinity for Zeke when Zeke was here, just because I need one of those shirts that says "Run the damn ball." But one of my number 1A and 1B were Troy Smith and Mike Doss. So I thought Mike Doss he's another one of those guys, like true Buckeye through and through, captain of the defense. You could have went Laurinaitis. You could have went a lot of ways from some of those teams that we remember fondly. But I landed on those two, because I felt like they were like Captain Buckeye, and not that JT Barrett wasn't, but JT Barrett is actually the only player that I basically sat down and wrote an article that I put on Twitter about JT Barrett when he graduated, more or less as a thank you. And, I hoped he would be remembered fondly in years to come, even though people often got frustrated with him. So, and what, people don't, sometimes it's hard to remember things because we have that affinity for Cardale Jones because he came in and injury against JT Barrett against Michigan, and then he beat Wisconsin, and then we go on to win the Natty that year. But JT Barrett, Braxton Miller got hurt in summer camp. If JT Barrett doesn't come on after we lose to Virginia Tech and we run the table, we don't win a Natty that year. JT Barrett got us there. Cardale finished it off. So things to remember, I guess. Recency bias, but yeah. All right. So I want to ask you something that Juck brought up, and I didn't get to put it in our show notes. So I'm sorry if this catches you off guard. It's not intentional. He brought up Title IX yesterday, and shout out to Juck. He's on it all the time, man. Like that guy. He's a friend of the show. He's a friend of ours both. We literally have a text thread between the three of us called Pod Bros. So, we're always talking about stuff, and he brought up Title IX in relation to the impact it could have on NIL. And I just wanted to get, your high level take on that, because mine may not be popular.
Well, I've brought this up. I brought this up in chats, on some of the other podcasts before, and then we've talked about it once or twice in the past year. my understanding with the way Title IX works is that as long as the university continues to accept federal funding for scholarships, then Title IX is going to apply. My thought was, if they start, what does it mean if a particular sport no longer accepts federal funding for their scholarships? So for instance, let's say football starts to get funded completely without federal funds, and those scholarships are either done through revenue sharing or, nil collectives, what have you, which I don't think that would ever happen. But if it did, then does that sport now become exempt? And if a sport like football is no longer part of Title IX, that's going to eliminate a bunch of women's sports, hypothetically.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think as long as that federal funding tie is still there, then Title IX is not going anywhere.
Okay. Well, this is where this was coming from with me. So when I was listening to Chuck, he was talking about providing 50% of the opportunities to both male and female athletes and for NIL. And I know that I am very particular about where I donate my money to. Specifically, I'm only donating towards football and a little bit of basketball. And I'm struggling with the fact, because I like to be able to dictate where my money goes because it's my money. And I wanted to go to the football program because I like the football program. And if they're going to force NIL collectives to take half of my money and give it to women's lacrosse, I'll just pick that. No offense, women's lacrosse, none whatsoever. I don't want that to happen. I don't want half my money to go to that. I want my money to go to football. And so I'm trying to understand how that would work. I'm just throwing that out there as a way I'm just trying to understand. I'm not not saying that will happen.
I must have missed that. I saw your comment during Zuck's live stream.
Yeah.
I must have got distracted for a minute when he talked about this. But so is the concern that the money coming in as donations is going to be subject to Title IX and have to be divvied up evenly? I don't think that's the case. It's Title IX has to do with federal funding and scholarships, and opportunities afforded to women as opposed to men. So you basically have to have the same number of scholarships for women that you do for men on campus, and that's why there's usually more women's sports than there are men's when schools have a football team, right? Because nobody else has a roster that does 85 scholarships.
Yeah, so he mentioned opportunities. So I'll use the Express, for CJ Stroud. I'm assuming that's what they're talking about. So you would have to provide the same type of opportunity for women's sports as you did for men's sports, because let's say that Express NIL deal was a cool meal for CJ. Okay. There would have to be something equal or similar. So you'd have to take half of that. So 500,000 goes to CJ and 500,000 goes to, I would use and it's not at Ohio State, but I would use Caitlin Clark. So Caitlin Clark is the name in women's basketball for Iowa, obviously. So do they need to do that? So that's what I think we're all just trying to understand what the implications this has. And I'm not picking, and I'm not taking sides. I just need to understand.
Yeah, I get it. Now that you said that, I'm not an attorney. I've played one on Facebook a number of times. I've yet to do it on Twitter, and I promise not to.
No, don't.
However, there is no way that would fly. When you consider the antitrust lawsuits that are taking place right now, and you're talking about, the whole premise is that you're limiting an individual's ability to make money off their name, image, and likeness. And you're going to talk about CJ having to give up half of his earning potential to somebody else. I don't see that happening from an antitrust standpoint. But what I do see happening is there's going to start to be, if you're talking about revenue sharing, like they came out with, I don't know if you saw the article that came out on ESPN yesterday about the, conference and school officials are in deep discussions on a settlement over all those lawsuits that are going on right now.
I saw it.
When you start talking about revenue sharing, you're going to start having the same debate that they have with men and women's soccer and the NBA and the WNBA. And it's like, that was a big thing recently with, Caitlin Clark's salaries being $70,000 and $80,000 or whatever over the first 4 years compared to what these guys in the NBA are making. And what people don't realize is the NBA loses $10 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
Like they are a losing business. They don't make money. So it's all of this is going to start creeping into college sports now, and it's just going to change it. I mean, as long as they don't take away the bands and the cheerleaders and the mascots, we'll always have college football. But it's going to look it's changing so quick.
Well, they did talk too about referencing the NBA versus the WNBA and the percentage that like the WNBA players get of their total revenue is significantly higher than the men's.
Yeah.
But they just don't bring in the total revenue that the men's sports do. And we know this about Ohio State football. Ohio State football is the thing that makes the engine go for the athletic department, period. I mean, I love basketball and I love the baseball team. I follow them on Twitter. I root for them. And the wrestling team is great, whatever sport, pick your sport. But we all know that the football program keeps them in the black. And so it's that age old thing, I was curious. And so I probably started the conversation off incorrectly, but by saying I wanted to dictate where I want my money to go, but I want my money to go to football. And if it's not going to go to football, or if there's an impact to that, I'm going to stop donating and find a different way to do it to where I can donate to football.
I've always been of the mindset that they're going to allow people to direct their money and where it goes. I mean, that already happens.
Mm-hmm.
People, you hear about these huge endowments to like the medical program and the engineering program and, aerospace and all that kind of stuff. I mean, people dictate where their money goes all the time. I think that you're going to be able to do that. If the school takes over handling money for the NIL, then they're going to have to allow people to earmark their money where they want it to go.
Yeah. Well, I know. So I'll use this reference too. We go to a family camp every year, and on a lake, and we go with lots of friends, and they're a nonprofit, and we love going there. It's a great thing, but you can donate to facilities. You can, they do donations, and you can donate to facilities. You can donate to, camp staff. You can donate to, whatever, replacing the basketballs in the gym, that kind of stuff. So, and you get to pick, there's a drop down. And, so I would, if this is going to go a different direction, I would very much like it to be that way is really where I was going with this. I want to be able to select football and then, men's basketball, and that's it.
Yeah. Well,
that's my preference.
Yeah. I think there'll be an option for that. And you know what? I mean, it's not far-fetched to think that our money's not going to be needed anymore.
Yeah, it won't for a long time. Yeah, eventually it'll get to the point where they'll be self-sufficient.
Well, to be clear, we're talking about a school like Ohio State.
Yes,
right?
Yes, yeah.
A lot of other schools won't, unless they come up with salary caps and all that other kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think you're going to start seeing more and more corporate sponsors, like we're seeing with some of these deals now. Especially in a place like Columbus, that's a huge pitch to these guys.
Yeah. Well, apparently not in Michigan, because they're only paying their starters, $50,000 or something. So. All right. Well, that's enough of that. I just picked up on that on Juck's show. Shout out to you, Juck, too, man. Appreciate you. So if you guys are still with us, Tuesday, May 7th, so it's coming up around the corner. Terry, the host of College Football Stop, is going to be joining us for another pod mashup. Something that Dan and I like to do is just get together with other people that do pods in the Buckeye world and chat with them and get their take too. So he'll be joining us. So we're excited to have Terry on, and we will continue to do this. And so Dan and I have talked about this, and we've talked about it with some other folks as well. And hopefully you got to catch Dan's episode where he joined Scarlet and Great with Loco Corey from Florida, and talked about Devin Brown. So I'm a big believer in, like, we're all Buckeye fans at heart, and I want other people to be able to, like, share their views and be part of the pod world. And so if you have a pod and you want to come on and talk with us, I'm all for it. I'm not possessive. We're not on the beat, and we're not beholden to any like contractual obligations. So we can invite whoever we feel like to be on our show. And so that's what we're doing. And I like doing the mashups. I don't know about you, Dan, but I think it's fun. Get different perspective.
No, it's a lot of fun. And then also, if you happen to be a recruit or a parent of a recruit or a parent of a player, and you want to come on and chat a little bit about what it's like, in your role as a parent of a player or a recruit, and tell us what it's like to navigate through that process. That'd be really cool too. Go ahead, reach out to us, and we'll have you on.
Yeah, I would absolutely love that. So you and I have talked about, I have a friend who has two sons, both play in Division III football. And I've talked about having him on just about what those kids go through, even in Division III, what their life is like, between schoolwork, study table, football practice, games, travel, all of that. So we've had I haven't been able to line it up with him yet, just around scheduling. But if you're a parent of a recruit and you want to come on and just tell everybody in the world what it's like to have coaches calling your house at 4 a.m. in the morning, we would love to hear it. So, but that's going to do it for me and for us today. Thank you guys for listening. Appreciate you guys. Again, like and subscribe. You guys have been great. We love the interaction. So hit us on Twitter, hit us on YouTube. We do have a Facebook page too, if you still do Spotify. Facebook. Oh yes. And I finally figured out how to put our Spotify episodes on. So if you're driving and you just want to listen, we are on Spotify under the best damn pod in the land. But otherwise, you guys have a good rest of your week. Stay safe out there. And as always, go Bucks.
Go Bucks.